Hey, mate, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming in. So, look, I'd hate to tell the viewers up front, but you are a marketer.
I am a marketer.
That's going to be unfortunate some days now because you hear that like it's the clickbait of industries at the moment, I think, isn't it?
Well, I think the challenge is lawyers are lawyers, doctors are doctors, accountants are accountants, and everyone's a marketer. Well, so they think, you know.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with that is, like you said, so they think.
Yeah.
It's not like it's there's uni degrees, obviously, but the majority of the industry is filled with people who have danced on TikTok growing up or something, and now they're a marketer. Yeah. And good on them, because actually the positive effect that's come from that is there's a huge amount of entrepreneurs now in that Gen Z space that really it's just a shift of their time. I mean, that's the industry they all went into.
Yeah.
In certain generations, they gravitated towards certain things.
Yeah.
And it seems like that generation is the generation of marketing.
Well, I think you could be right. I mean, there's a lot of kids these days want to be YouTubers, want to be TikTokers, because there's actually money in those industries now. But I think the challenge is, you know, these social media platforms, whilst they're good and they're seen as free, they're not really free. You know, you still got to put some thought into the content. You still got to have a strategy behind it. You still got to understand what your brand actually stands for, and then unveil that brand using those platforms. So whilst they're seen as free, they're not really free. And I think what it's done is the organic reach on some of those platforms has definitely plummeted. And now they're sort of pay and play platforms. So the landscape's changed. So interesting times.
I think the natural viewership is dying off. People are acting like it's not, but the organic views you get on social media really are tanking compared to what they were. TikTok's still up there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn especially, I noticed LinkedIn's a lot harder to go viral on now.
LinkedIn used to be really good for organic reach, and it's still probably one of the best. But again, I mean, there's opportunities for them to generate revenue. So it's definitely more of a pay and play type platform as well.
I think as well, you know, it's easy to say, you know, anyone can go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, but to do it consistently and well and in the same tone and branding and all that kind of stuff, it's actually way harder than people assume. I think anybody who's tried to do it themselves has realized pretty quick it's not that easy because there's a lot of moving parts and none of it matters if you're not consistent.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to be consistent at like anything in business. You know, if you talk about sales or marketing in general, I mean, all sales is about consistency, whether it's online through paid advertising or organic reach, or whether it's cold calling or door knocking. None of it works if you do it one day, 1 week, 1 month. It's constant. And to constantly be filming yourself and coming up with new ideas is actually a lot harder than door knocking the same script you could use for 20 years.
Yeah, look, totally. And I think having the confidence to put yourself out there, you know, to put your face behind your brand or behind your own personal brand, whatever it is, I think it takes, you know, a lot of courage. It takes a lot of confidence because you're putting yourself out there to be judged. So, yeah, look, I applaud anybody that's doing it. I think that there probably could be a little bit more strategic thinking that goes into some of the content that is put out there today. I think that at the moment we're probably seeing more rubbish content than ever before because people are just sort of vomiting out content. Whether that's good, whether that's bad, remains to be seen. But people that put themselves out there, good on them.
Yeah, I think it's getting out of your comfort zone like anything in business and marketing, right? And it's tough because for small businesses, you can't do everything. So for most businesses, they don't have a marketing team. They've got to trust someone to outsource it to.
Yeah.
And to do that well costs money. And the repayment, like anything in sales, is not guaranteed. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people, I know for me, it's where I got burnt out with marketing, was just this sheer amount of money that went to the wind. And not that it was anyone's fault, but it's just a tough thing to get right because it's not as simple as have a good offer. Like it's got to be a great offer. It's got to be to the right people. It's got to be at the right time. You've got to have a follow-up process. It's, whereas the traditional cold call or door knock, if you're an industry that can do that, which a lot still do, basically anything that's not e-com, like if you're a service-based business, door knocking, cold calling still, pretty big.
Yeah.
It's a bit more guaranteed for your time. Like you at least know how many people you're going to talk to, whether they're yeses or nos. But it feels like with social media, I've done a few paid ones myself, not through a company, and you look at the viewers and you're like, it looks like a fake viewer. How did that happen? You just don't know because you can't, I guess the views make you feel good. If you get good views, you're like, oh, mad, 10,000 people saw that. But it's like, how many of them did that sink in? How many of them might become customers? And I think that's the difference between, we see people on social media with personal branding just trying to become a persona, let's say, or have their own show or following for just their life.
Yeah.
But that's very different to growing a business and turning the views to leads. And it's much harder. It's not that hard to go viral on a video if you pick something divisive like a political topic or a world event that's just happened or whatever, and you jump on to make a video of you carrying on like a pork chop. It's probably going to go viral. Or they're doing something dumb in the street, like there's a lot of street interview type stuff, and a lot of it's really good.
Yeah.
But some of it's just stupid, funny stuff, or pretending to break something that you didn't actually break. It's all scripted. Like those can go viral almost guaranteed if you do it well. But to turn content like that into leads, maybe talk me through that, because that seems to be where people get it wrong. They think all I got to do is go viral. It's like, that's not even the start.
Well, I think that's the key. So you need to put the vanity metrics in your back pocket. So that's all ego driven. People want to be popular. They want people to like their content, and that's natural. That's just human nature. But it doesn't matter how many views you have or how many people comment on the post. You might get 140 people that see your particular post. You might get 2 or 3 customers out of it, because out of those 140, they're really tuned into your niche. They're tuned into your offer, your service, your value proposition. So they're the people you want to be talking to. But I think it's easy to get lost in those vanity metrics. And we saw Instagram, obviously, a little while ago. I think they've changed it now, but people couldn't see how many people were liking posts and things like that, because I was trying to remove that egotistical vanity metric. But I think the key thing is understanding who your market is, who your competitors are, what's your unique selling proposition, what's your value proposition, and then dialing in on that. And I think that once you have a clear understanding on your strategic intent, who your audience is, what value they're looking for, then delivering that value to them, you're going to turn those viewers into customers and sort of bring them into your funnel. And I think that's the key. And I think that's what's is missing to a large degree, just that strategic thinking, that strategic intent with any sort of content that you actually develop or put out there. Could just be entertainment and you're just doing it for fun, well, perfect. But if you're looking to actually generate leads and customers off the back of that, you really got to put a little bit more thought into it.
I think especially in the content, because the people I've seen, just in my own opinion, become really successful, it's just been, it's not complicated. While you're watching it, it seems simple, but the thought that went into it was huge. It could be as simple as, a guy painting a door frame, but he's explaining some weird little thing no one's ever heard of that makes them comment or share it to their friend or whatever, and that's what gives it the reach.
Yeah.
Compared to, like there's so many ways to do it. You can just talk down the barrel of a camera, but it's the creativeness of actually doing something of interest while you're explaining what's valuable.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to get right.
No, I agree. And it's about finding the balance between what people call authentic content, where you're filming it yourself, and having more polished content. You need to sort of find the balance between the two. And I think you sort of need a bit of both, that authentic content and that sort of more highly produced content, and finding the balance there. And then obviously dialing into what your audience is looking for from your business or your personal brand.
Yeah, another thing I was thinking the other day, maybe you can talk to this, is, you watch a video, you really like it because the person's funny or whatever, and what's the first thing you do? Click on their page and you watch a few more.
Yeah.
But if you click on someone's page and it's sporadically off topic in 20 different directions, you're only going to scroll once or twice, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But the people where every video, one after the other, is the same but just slightly tweaked, so it's interesting enough to rewatch, but it's on the same topic that kind of hooked you in the first place, I think that's where the hidden value is. But as the creator, you feel repetitive. You feel like you're being almost corny, like you're saying the same thing 100 times, but people aren't watching it necessarily every day, 100 days. So, but that one person might watch 10 videos in a row, and as long as they're all on the same topic, it's not repetitive to them. And I think that's where people get it wrong, is they think, well, I've already made a video on that.
Yeah.
But it seems that you've got to make the same video 10 different ways, just slightly tweaked, so you could watch them one after the other, but trying to, I'm terrible at it. I change topics every 2 seconds on my social medias.
Yeah.
And so if you liked one of my videos and then went onto my page and went for a scroll, none of them would make sense to the last one.
Yeah.
But I guess that's different between personal branding. People might watch it for you, but I guess in a business, it's got to be that constant on topic.
Well, you want to have that consistency. You want to have that particular tone of voice. You want to be selling delivering what people want to purchase from you, whether it's a service or whether it's a product, and be true to that and consistent to that. But it needs to be unique to a certain point that people go, you know what? I understand what these guys do. I get it. I want to engage that particular service. So you need to have that consistency. It's like going into a McDonald's store. If we throw back to that, every McDonald's store has got the same look and feel. Doesn't matter where you are, anywhere around the world. They've got that consistency. You know the logo. You know what you're going to get. And they've hit the nail on the head. So if you take that McDonald's example into your content, when people see your content, they need to know what they're going to get from it. They need to know.
It doesn't have to be the best. You don't go to Macca's for the best burger. You go there because you know it's going to be consistent. It's what you expect.
Yeah.
So wind me back. So you've been in marketing how long?
So I've been in marketing now for 25 plus years.
Was that straight out of school or?
Finished school, went to uni, studied a Bachelor of Business Marketing degree, then went straight into corporate. And
you probably had to do a degree back then to be considered a marketer?
Well, back then, so I finished school in 97, so 98 went to uni. If you didn't have a degree, you really struggled to get a job in corporate life. So
that's funny, isn't it? Because marketing seems to be like the last thing you need a degree for now. You just need to be good at something in marketing. No, I don't know anyone who goes, well, where's your marketing degree?
Yeah. Well, it's times have changed. I don't know if it's for the better, because what uni taught me, it didn't teach me marketing. It taught me how to think, it taught me how to be resourceful, and it teaches how to be committed to something. So finished school, did tertiary education. Of course, you learn some things. But then about going into the corporate world, I was lucky enough to work for some big global companies like LG, Dakin, Thermos, some really big brands. And I had some really good mentors along the way. So I had some really good, when I was coming up, some really good marketing directors I worked under that worked on, brands like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson. I worked on the LG brand and some big ones as well. And they're the ones that really impart their knowledge. So I think it's important to have some really good mentors. Doesn't matter what you do, but definitely it was my experience in marketing. I have some really good mentors, and they taught me how to think strategically. So it's a skill that you need to develop over time. You need to see a few different scenarios to understand how to sort of put that strategic thinking together. And I was lucky enough to be in those corporate frameworks, for the best part of 20 years. And then my last corporate role was the GM of marketing. Company was bought out. Off the back of that, they paid out the executive team, which I was a part of. Took some time off, went overseas, had a little holiday. Was actually working in a friend's restaurant, just sort of hanging out, just doing something totally different. And they said, why don't you start a marketing agency? Oh, look, too competitive. The market's saturated. Picked up 1 client, 2 clients, 3 clients, and sort of here we are 8 years later.
So, 25 years ago, marketing was very different in some ways, but in some ways I think it isn't that different, because the framework of marketing is the same. It's just the delivery method that's probably changed the most, right? But, the corporate businesses you were working in would have been doing billboards and all kinds of stuff and TV advertisement, and, that's now just YouTube advertisement, or 10play or whatever the apps are now. It's opened up the availability for more businesses to use that. Back then when you were probably straight out of uni, the idea of advertising on TV. I remember my dad used to advertise on TV back when we were growing up, and it was like, wow, you're on TV, There's like a photo of me and my sister in one of his ads, and everyone at school knew about it because every morning everyone would watch that one channel while they're getting ready for school.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's so many channels to deliver the message. It's not how you curate the message necessarily that's probably changed. That's probably what's most alike from 20 years ago, right? It's just that there's more availability to do it, which probably just creates more confusion for the small business, because the small business only had white pages or yellow pages.
Well, 100%. I mean, when I was at Dakin, we were spending $300,000 a year, I think, on yellow pages. Wow. And then I went into census, then obviously it died off. But we were making TV commercials, like a 30-second ad and a 15-second ad, and it was costing $300,000. So it was big money, big productions, and it was a lot of fun. But I think what's changed now is content is a lot more accessible. I don't think marketing's changed in terms of, the thinking and the strategy and that sort of branding that goes into it, but the different platforms have changed. And I actually shot some content on this topic today. What people don't realise is 19 million Aussies still watch free-to-air TV per week. But that's now split across linear TV, which is if you've got the aerial on the roof, or BVOD, which is if you're watching the 10play apps.
I wouldn't even know how to go on either of them.
Stuff, right? So in terms of brand awareness, TV is still the number one medium.
Wow.
Like 90 million Aussies per week. So there's still a place for it. Obviously, the production of TV commercials are a lot cheaper than what they used to be. You've got to be a lot more creative. So I think there's a lot more creativity that goes into those sort of platforms. But what's also emerged is obviously social media, where brands can have two-way conversations with their audience, which is pretty cool. Obviously, emergence of Google, Now we've got ChatGPT. Audio is still performing really well. So radio, digital audio, podcast, listener, all those sorts of Spotify, those.
Is TV still that expensive?
Depends on what you're buying and how you're buying. So with BVOD, which is broadcast video on demand, which is you catch up TV and things like that, you can spend as little as $10,000 a month if you want, maybe even less. So it's definitely a lot more accessible, a lot more attainable. It still works. Radio still works. Obviously, it's changed with the podcast landscapes and digital radio, but those platforms still work. So I think that, for any brand, you need to have a holistic marketing plan. It's not just digital. Digital is very important, but you need to build that brand awareness to get people to actually have your brand as consideration set before they then go onto those digital platforms and start searching and researching your business.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done a few small bits on TV and the news as a security expert. And when I first started doing them, it was a bit like, well, I'll just do it and see what happens. But I assume no one would ever watch it, But then every now and then someone will say, or while I was on, there was a stabbing in Melbourne or whatever, and I go on for the machete stuff. And then for that next week or two after that, people are like, oh, I saw you, or they're sending me photos. And the first thing I think every time is, what are we doing watching the 6 o'clock news?
Yeah.
Who the hell watches that?
Yeah.
But people do, and it's always unsuspecting. Like, I'm not talking about my grandma. Like, people my age are watching the 6 o'clock news every day. And I'm like, that's so weird. I just wouldn't think anyone watches it anymore. I would assume we're just getting the clips later.
Well, in terms of trust and credibility and brand awareness, the old school platforms still work. So you need to have that 360-degree view of your communication strategy, and that's how you're going to get the best results. So Google is obviously really important. With ChatGPT, SEO is becoming more important because ChatGPT and those sort of platforms are pulling off the internet. It's using Google and Yahoo and Bing and all those sorts of platforms. So SEO is becoming more important. Obviously, Google Ads, as soon as you turn it on, you appear. As soon as you turn it off, you disappear. Then you've got remarketing, and then you've got the meta ads. So there's a lot out there, but it's about understanding what's your budget, who's your audience, and how can you best utilize the resources that you've got.
So I've got a question for you, and I'm interested to hear your answer. It might be putting you on the spot. So let's say you've come back from pretending to work in a bar at your mate's restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? Pretending to work.
Yeah.
Probably just sinking beers all day.
Yeah.
And you've started your marketing business, right? Now I'm assuming you had a few customers that were friends or whatever, or connections you already had. But they dry up pretty quick, and now you've got to do marketing and sales. Yeah. What were your first steps, knowing what you knew from the corporate world? How long ago was this? 8 years ago you said you started your business?
8 years ago.
So 8 years ago, it's not crazy different. TikTok was around 8 years ago, maybe not in the way it is now, but Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn was all there 8 years ago. Yeah. What were your methods as a new business with a branding no one knew about? Where did you approach the market?
So that's a good question. So I wasn't big on socials. Obviously set up all those social pages, Facebook, Instagram. I didn't set up TikTok. I set up a LinkedIn page. But what I did was I worked my network really hard. So I had that big corporate experience. I spent a lot of time in those big companies, knew a lot of people. So I basically just worked that network really hard and grew the business through getting good results and word of mouth. Obviously, there's no more powerful marketing tool than word of mouth because you're getting that trust and you're getting that warm introduction. But that's how I grew my business. I have done, over the years, a fair bit of radio. Radio is good in terms of brand awareness and just, getting some of that credibility because people hear you out on the radio and you're having that conversation. So, I heard Barking Dog on the radio, which is good, similar to you when people see you on the TV. So that is obviously really good. We do a lot of SEO, see organic search results for Barking Dog, which is good. If I was to invest in Google AdWords in Sydney, for instance, because there's so many marketing agencies, you'd be looking at 150 to 200K per month just in ad spend.
To be competitive, yeah.
To be competitive, which is a lot of money. And I think you can spend that money, depending on your industry, in different areas. So, word of mouth was really good for me and just working that network. And that's how I sort of built the business.
I love your answer, Andy, because it's exactly what I hoped you would say. And I'll tell you why. When you speak to new business owners now, somebody who's literally starting, let's say today, 2025, when you say to them, what's your marketing plan? The first thing they say is, I'm going to do posts on Instagram, I'm going to do posts on LinkedIn and maybe TikTok. And I think what the new business owners who are younger don't understand is that's not marketing. That's advertising.
Yeah.
And marketing is the whole picture. Marketing is networking. It's going on a radio station. It's having the right branding on your website. It's having SEO. Marketing's a huge department, but I think marketing's been reduced to social media. I think new business owners think that's what it is.
They do. And I think that's a misconception. I think that will need to change. Social media, it's not the silver bullet. It's not the be all and end all. It's just, I call it a cost of doing business now. It's like a hygiene factor. So you need to have some sort of social media presence because people expect it. It's like having a website. If you don't have a website, you don't exist.
No one trusts you.
So you need to have a website. You need to have some sort of social media presence. But I think it's more hygiene than revenue generating, in my opinion. So it's something that you need to have. Is it going to change your world? Probably not. But you need to have some sort of presence.
Yeah, it's almost like a quick credibility check. Like, how serious is this person?
Yeah.
You know, if somebody came along to me and said, I do this business, whatever it might be, the first thing you might do is go on their website or a social media. But it might not be what you make your decision on.
Yeah.
But if you went to those platforms and there was nothing, or you said all the time there's one post from 12 months ago, I remember we completely dropped marketing one year. And when I finally decided we were going to pick it back up again, our first new post was going to be the Christmas party photos. And I didn't realize till I jumped on, the last post we did was the year before's Christmas photos.
12-month gap in between.
Yeah. And I thought, God, if I was a buyer and I looked at this, I'd go, they're not serious.
Yeah.
And the content doesn't have to be this flashy, amazing. Something is better than nothing. It just shows relevance. It shows that you've got consistency. It shows that you're serious.
Yeah.
And that's what I put it down as, like a credibility check to show, yeah, these people are legit. They're a real business. And there are signs that tell us if someone's a real business, right? If you're in any profession and, you know, let's pick boxing, for example, right? If you're a boxer and you tell someone I'm a boxer, there's going to be certain questions that if they know boxing, if they're into it, they might drop a few questions about a certain rule you should know about, or another person who's a boxer you should know the name of, or, you know, if you're a wrestler with no cauliflower ears, they might go, how serious is this guy? Like, there's those little cues. It's the same in business. I do it all the time to people when someone comes to me with a service they want to offer and I start going into questions. The questions aren't usually prove to me you're the best at this thing. It's kind of to find out how serious this person is. And it doesn't matter whether you're in business 5 minutes or 10 years.
Yeah.
There's going to be, you know, success has clues to it.
Yeah.
You know, and part of that is now social media. It used to be, are you in white pages and yellow pages?
Yeah.
You know, because obviously it wasn't expected you're on TV.
Yeah.
But now it is expected that there is a visual aspect to your business, whether it's videos online or social media posts or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a credibility check, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think in doing something is better than doing nothing. It doesn't need to be perfect. I think it needs to be thought through, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And you just refine and optimize as you go. I think that's the secret. But yeah, look, anyone that's having a crack, good on them. You know, because it's hard to have a business.
Yeah.
It's hard being entrepreneurship is seen as being very cool and it's very topical at the moment, but it's bloody hard work.
It's awesome when you've got that hype at the start, but when you start getting those midnights in a row, or 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. of staring at the computer screen and going, what the hell do I do next? It sinks in.
Yeah.
You know, when they say most businesses fail at 2, 5, 4 years, whatever it is, it's because at that stage it gets very lonely, very difficult. You know, the sexiness of it's worn off.
Yeah.
And I think that happens quicker now than ever, probably because there's so much competition. I could imagine even 8 years ago, there was probably less competition when you started your business.
Well, I mean, there's always been a lot of competition. There's probably more so now because there's so many different social media marketing agencies. But my sort of view is branding and marketing is business strategy. So I think you can't decipher the two. What we do is business strategy, and some of that business strategy has got a communication aspect to it, which is your content, your advertising, you're developing that outward-facing view of the brand. But at its core, it's business strategy, and I think that's been lost a little bit over the years, especially with the emergence of content creators. And I know it was really cool to say you just got to tell your story. But how can you tell your story if you don't know what you stand for? If you don't know what your value proposition is, if you don't understand what your brand stands for, then what story are you telling? And I think that's important for people to think about.
So let's wind back to you starting your business. So, everybody has that phase of trying to leverage friends and network and things like that. But normally two things happen. Either it dries up and you're still on your own, or you get so much work, you've got to start building a team. What did that look like for you?
Well, I was really blessed that it didn't dry up. So I started the business, and my friends and contacts really leaned in and allowed me to grow the business to where it's at today, which has been really good. So two things: obviously, we delivered some really good results, and then people were talking about it, and we picked up some more clients. So we're really lucky in that aspect, and we've got a really good team of people around us that are doing some really good quality work, which is great. So we've worked hard, but been really blessed at the same time.
And do you try and narrow in to a certain geographical area or a certain type of marketing, or is there like a process you go, you're not the right business for us? Because I find, I hear a lot of people, or pretty much everyone's got a bad experience with a marketing company, right? I've got a great one, which I'll keep it private as, so I don't get sued. But most of the time, and I learned from my own experience, it's usually not because either party did something wrong. It's because both parties were a bad fit. And in marketing, there's no guarantees, and there is guarantees eventually, but you've got to have enough money to get to that result. And I think that's where we went wrong. I don't know what you've seen like that with customers, but every time we've tried to do a big marketing push in the early days, we just ran out of money before we could make it work. And I think that's what people don't realize. It's not like it's going to happen in the first month or two. Like it's 5 or 6 months before you've even got enough information to know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you need to sort of give it 6 to 12 months just to sort of see what traction you're getting. SEO, for instance, by the time you start SEO to the time you actually start feeling a difference in your business, you're talking 12 months. Google AdWords, depending on your industry and the words you're going after and the geographic locations, it sort of depends. You need to be committed. You need to be committed, I would say, for a minimum 12 months before you start seeing some of those results coming through. So in terms of good fit, I mean, we walk away from a lot of business because we only want to work, we've got a no dickhead policy. So we only want to work with good people.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a good fit. It's got to be a good fit for me and my business. It's got to be a good fit for them. So somebody that doesn't have the commitment to marketing, well, they're not going to be a client for us. Anyone that's really pushing on price, that they probably don't have the ability to sustain that sort of 12-month period. So they're probably not a client for us. But in saying that, we do a lot of strategy workshops and work with a lot of different businesses, and we just leave it at that. So it may just be we need to go in there and just help them decipher what's in their mind, because the client's got all the answers. It's about just drawing that information out of their mind and putting in some sort of logical, workable order and giving them the blueprint to actually bring it to life, and they want to have a crack at doing it themselves. So it can take many different forms. It doesn't have to be a huge financial commitment over a long period of time, but I think that you need to have that longer vision and view to get the best results.
I think, if you're looking at a business from the outside in, a business that's booming, that's going up, is going to have the money to burn, basically, to get to the result. But I often find when you're working with somebody who's reacting because the business is going down and they're running out of money and they've got their last bit of budget left to try and get some growth out of it, they're normally the hardest people to work with, right? Because it's really hard to solve a problem with somebody in a panic.
Yeah. Well, when someone's desperate, obviously they're probably not thinking clearly. They're under a lot of stress and pressure. So they've got challenges that you're probably not seeing. So definitely, they're probably going to be more high maintenance, harder to deal with. So, yeah.
Which is the story of a lot of small businesses now, right? If you talk to any lawyer or accountant, no one's saying these are great times for business.
Yeah.
So I think that's made everyone post-COVID rethink their marketing and sales strategies, right? Because it's probably more confusing than ever.
And it may be controversial to say this, but I didn't mind the fact that interest rates were going up and there was a bit of a squeeze, because what it did was it sort of got rid of some of that deadwood out of the market. In terms of some of those people that started marketing agencies that couldn't sustain it, you probably shouldn't have started it. So it sort of cleared some of that deadwood out, and it made us work a lot harder for our money. So during the good times, you don't probably have to work as hard and you're enjoying the upside a lot more. And I think that we had a big period of that, which has been fantastic. But I think people forgot what it actually means to work that little bit harder. And those businesses that did thrive and survive, during and post, is probably off the back of that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think it definitely did clear out or cut the fat, right?
Yeah.
But it also put a lot of businesses that were that kind of family business size in a real sticky spot because a family business normally operates with enough money for everyone to take home, but not with great profits. And some of those old school methods, like we were saying, the word of mouth, that kind of stuff did dry up. I know a lot of people we work with said the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's pushed a lot of people onto the online platforms. And that's probably given power to the people that don't have the experience to use the money wisely for their customer.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're still in the boom of that. I feel like every 5 minutes there's a new guy telling you he's got the secret sauce to Google ads.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you need to understand what's your strategy going in, who's your target audience, what geographic areas you're going to target, what can you literally, what can you afford, what can't you afford, and then you work off the back of that. If you just use that sort of scattergun approach, you're going to go broke pretty quickly.
Yeah, because it does get expensive. I mean, even you're trying to push small ads and stuff, Google especially can be outrageous because, like you were saying before, the competitive clicks are through the roof on most industries.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe you can explain more. When it comes to competing for clicks on Google, right? Google's still, in my opinion, probably one of the better spots to generate leads for a business because that's normally the intent of the person. The intent on social media is to have a laugh or to get some quick information to keep scrolling. But if someone's on your Google ad, it's because they're normally looking for what you sell. But you can be beaten out of the market by the competition. And what we've found is if you don't have a budget that can fight through the noise, you can basically run out of money early in the day and then you're done for the rest of it. Is that how it works? It's not...
Well, look, totally. I mean, you can easily exhaust your budget really quickly if you don't have a sort of clear strategy going in. So you might have 10 grand per month, for instance, to spend on Google ads. So you would pick a particular geographic area and sort of target a radius in and around that and try and own that spot. You're not going to try and own all of Sydney. If you try and own all of Sydney, you've got a limited budget, you'll probably lose it, really quickly. Mm-hmm. So sort of just doing that geographic targeting and having a radius in and around that particular zone, trying to get some business out of that, testing, measuring and optimizing that first, and then move on to the next, or business is building, so we're gonna keep that on and we're going to move over here as well. So just having that measured approach, or you might want to, build a campaign on some longer tail keywords. So instead of bidding on an absolute keyword, say security, you might do site security cameras, and it's those phrase of words that you're looking to.
Is it still something people can do themselves, or has Google made the settings and everything too complicated for that now?
Look, you can probably do it yourself, but I don't know what sort of results you're going to have. It's better if you partner with the experts. I think you're going to save yourself a lot of turmoil and heartache, in terms of what your results potentially going to look like.
Is there a budget you say to people if you don't have this much, there's no point?
Look, there's no budget. It really just depends on the industry. It depends on how competitive those words are. It depends on the sorts of geographic locations you're trying to target. So there's no minimum or maximum. It really just depends on what you're trying to do. But we know that when people are researching a particular brand, they're generally doing it on Google. So it is still it's still a really, really important platform.
I think as well, even, SEO only gets you so far now because the ads are always above that, right?
So there's always the ads above, but the organic search results are still really important. So a lot of people want to click on those search results that come back because they're more of a closer match as opposed to, people spending advertising dollars. So SEO is really important. So it's about, the technical proficiency of your website, the content, the referring domains, and that's when Google will serve those businesses in terms of the listings. But SEO takes time.
Yeah, but like I said before, the intent is there, right? If people are going on Google, like the SEO spend still would trump Instagram or TikTok or any of the new methods, surely.
Yeah. So I think those things are more of a hygiene factor. You've just got to have those platforms. It may help for a bit of brand awareness. When people are serious, they're generally going on Google, doing a bit more heavy research, or they're going on Google to purchase your service or product, get in touch with you. But I think that's where, in terms of that marketing funnel, people are a little bit more serious when they're on the internet, doing some searches, landing on your website, for instance.
So to get a bit more specific, I guess for better advice for people listening, one of the things that I've always tried to consider from learning my own lessons of basically burning $100,000 on ads that went nowhere, what I've learned is not every business is right for every platform, or sometimes on a more micro level, not every service is right for every platform. So, for example, if you're in a acai shop or a kebab truck, running, a stupid video on Instagram or TikTok's probably going to get more people to come and eat at your food truck because it's the kind of, I guess, service people will take up from the internet. Or even if you're a plumber or a sparky or a aircon repairer, people are going to sit there, have a scroll, go, oh yeah, I wanted that extra sensor light, or my aircon's not working properly and it's starting to get hot. You might generate some leads from that, but professional services, or depending on what you're selling, some other services, I find it's just not the intent of somebody scrolling at 10 o'clock at night is never going to be to use that service.
I would say you're probably right. And if you do get a lead from social media and you're not in, your service doesn't really fit those platforms, the chance of that lead being any good is pretty low. Somebody's accidentally clicked it and it's automatically filled out their details and it's landed in your inbox. So it's probably not going to be a good quality lead, outside of some of those more interesting and fashionable type of industries.
So if you're a smaller business with a smaller budget, would the advice be you're better off just finding the right platform for what you're selling and going hard on it and not trying to be on everything?
So the first thing I would do is really understand your brand. So understanding your vision, mission, your values, what's your brand promise, what's your brand's personality, what's its feelings, what's its tone of voice, because the reality is it's the people in your business that bring that brand to life. So you need to be able to articulate it both emotionally and rationally. And your people in those business need to understand what your brand actually stands for so they can actually bring it to life in the day-to-day jobs, whatever that may be. So I think that having a really clear understanding of your brand is step number one. And then step number two, understanding the competitive landscape. So who are your competitors? Where's the clear space? What do they stand for? What are their value propositions? What's my value proposition? What makes me different? So I think that'd be step number two. And then step number three is how are we going to go after our target audience? Who is our target audience? What segments are we going to target?
Where are they viewing from?
Yes. Yeah. And where are they hanging out? So are they hanging out on social media? Are they watching TV or listening to podcasts or the radio? Are they doing a lot of internet? So you need to understand who's your target audience, where are they hanging out, and that's where you'll put your money.
I think as well, you need to decide whether what level of trust your service needs. For example, I'm in security, right? And so people don't really, I guarantee you if I put $1,000 on Google today and the same on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, I'll get no leads out of the social medias, but I guarantee leads on Google.
Yeah.
And I think because there's a trust barrier as well. And if you can't, it's hard to build trust, on a TikTok or whatever, because the platform itself inherently just doesn't have a high level of trust for the people that are on it.
Yeah.
So, good point there, kind of starting with understanding your brand. But what's the best use of that then? Is it to have that well portrayed on your website or to pick a social media that can tell the story? Once you do understand where all that's going, what's the best use for it?
Well, I think that first understand your brand, understand your target audience, then work out which platform is going to be best for you. Whether it's going to be, you definitely need a good website. So step number one.
I'm a massive website guy, right? I've spent all of my time that I can on making sure our website is absolutely on point. It's still not perfect, but I think websites are dynamite. But some people try and tell me that's not the case anymore. What do you think?
I think websites is one of your most key foundation platforms. So I think it helps build that trust. It gives you credibility, and it'll give your target audience some peace of mind. So I think websites are really important. So having a really good website, I think, is key. And then you build off the back of that.
Yeah, because, a lot of the time, most businesses, you don't check out on a website. You go there for more information, right?
Yeah.
And so one of our hard lessons learned was on a funnel.
Yeah.
And we were the kind of website you'd come to for a bit of information, but it wouldn't give you the psychological walkthrough that a funnel does. So we spent a ton of money on a funnel. And then I realized basically every service page should be more or less a funnel that has click-through actions and all that stuff. But trying to get all that right can be confusing.
Yeah.
So I think if you're a small business starting out, is it important to have a full website with a contact us page and an about us page? Or if you're just starting out with a small budget, can you just build a landing page with a walkthrough?
Totally. I mean, having something is better than nothing. So having a landing page, it's a good first step. When I launched my business, I started with a landing page. So I think you just need to have some sort of presence. And then once you start to get a bit of momentum, put some money into the website, make it better. Understanding how people are searching for you, understand how people are navigating through your website. And you just keep improving and optimizing as you go.
Yeah, it's not something you do once, right? Like it is an ongoing.
Yeah. It's one of those things you'll never stop optimizing your website. It's forever changing and evolving.
I made my first website on a tablet on some Google page thing for free.
Yeah.
And then the next one we made was $1,500 from some guy in Queensland. And that $1,500 page ranked number 1 in 12 months with no SEO.
Yeah.
But it was because the dude was real passionate about he had this software. I wish I remembered what it was now, but it was like you'd put in your page and then it would tell you, if the page used to sell cars, no, that's a bad example. If your page was to sell SEO,
yeah,
then it would tell you, oh, you're missing the word SEO 22 times. It needs to be on that page. And then you should use these other keywords 14 times and 16 times and two more times. And it would tell you how many words to have on each specific page to make it rank high. And I thought it was a load of BS at the start, but we did no SEO, $1,500 webpage. We wrote all the copy ourselves. That's how we saved the money on it. He wasn't a copywriter. He just built the website and gave us this software, and it ranked number 1 in 12 months. I have no idea how. To this day, it's still ranking high, and it's 5 years old.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I think it's just the power and that's where building your own website without those tools sucks, right? You'll never rank if you don't have someone to go, we need this many words on this page, this many times, in these areas, suburbs named and listed.
Yeah, so you've got to have content that's relevant to what people are searching. So it's not so much these days about keyword loading, so just loading up your particular pages with a particular keyword that you want to rank for. It's about now with the Google Spiders, when they're going through your website, it's about the relevancy of the content. It's about the authority of your particular website, so the referring domains, the content. It's about the technical proficiency of your website, making sure that it's built correctly, and it's built in such a way that the Google Spiders can actually go through and get the information off your website. So SEO has changed over the years, but it's definitely a foundation marketing tool that you should definitely do.
Tell me about the, I never remember the acronym, but it's the search term that's not SEO. It's for like AI chat GPT searches that you can optimize, GEO, some other thing. Have you heard of this?
Sure, no, I haven't.
Yeah, so apparently now, like SEO is obviously the optimization of your website.
Yeah.
But now you've got to think about how you can optimize so that you come up, I guess the argument is instead of people Googling what's the top 10 restaurants in Parramatta, they're going to go on ChatGPT and ask it. How do you rank on that?
Good SEO.
Okay.
So ChatGPT.
So no matter what, it's drawing from SEO.
It is drawing from SEO. So you can't do any paid advertising on ChatGPT. So the Google ads are not to discount it. It all comes correct. It all comes down to quality SEO. So I think now's the time to lean into SEO a little bit more, because that's where ChatGPT is getting a lot of the information from. In terms of because it wants to just serve you with information that is most relevant to the questions that you're asking.
Yeah, and I don't think you can feed ChatGPT info that it'll remember to recommend to someone else, right? Like if I have a software telling it 1,000 times a day that I'm the best marketing person in the world, it's not training it to do anything, is it? It's only going to go off what's on Google. Or
I don't think it's not going to make the AI platform any smarter. So I think it'll probably discount that. I don't know, but I would assume it's going to discount that sort of stuff.
How has AI come into marketing? I know for copywriting, it's obviously going to change things a lot because copywriting traditionally is one of the most expensive parts of building a website, right?
Look, it's interesting because it's ever evolving and it's changing. It's a good way to do things obviously a lot quicker now. I think you still got to put the thought into it. So you still got to have that strategy. You still got to have that thinking that goes into using those AI platforms. You need to understand how to get the best out of them. So in terms of, your prompts and all that sort of stuff. And it's really topical and it's really cool and it's really trendy. Are we going to get a throwback to, we don't want to use AI anymore? Are we going to get AI exhausted? I don't know. I think that it's really cool at the moment. Where it ends up, I'm not too sure. Are people going to turn away from it? Well, we'll just have to see.
It seems like there's a new AI tool coming out every day. I saw one the other day that basically you copy a competitor's website, put it in this tool, and it builds your website with your name and logo, but copying them, and I think the ad was like copying Nike or something, like a massive brand,
Yeah.
But I'm sure we're either there now or it's coming to the point where ChatGPT is going to know that that's an AI created website, or Google's going to know that's an AI created website and it's not going to rank as high, or there's got to be some kind of side effects or...
Yeah. Well, look at the deep fakes. I mean, now people are questioning all these sort of images and pictures and photos that are getting put out there.
I don't understand how these guys are getting the photos so good. Every time I try, you can tell it's retarded.
Yeah. Look, that's it. It comes down to them, and there's some skilled people out there that are prompting these platforms. But so I think people are going to become a little bit skeptical with a lot of the content and what's being put out there. You can tell now if somebody's using ChatGPT in their LinkedIn post because it's got the really long hyphens.
Yeah, my last comment, when I'm trying to get it to type something for me, the last thing I ask it is change all the grammar so it doesn't look like it's made by AI. And it does. That's all it does is remove those hyphens.
Removes the hyphens. So there's some key tells, especially obviously with some of the icons that it uses because it's big on those little icons. So we're in an interesting time. Yep. I think with marketing and sort of every industry with AI, because it's evolving really quickly. People are just learning how to use it, and where we end up, who knows? My
10-year kind of prediction that you can hold me accountable to, I think this is what's going to happen.
Yeah,
is that we're in a honeymoon phase of trust. There's still trust in online. There's still trust on social media. There's still trust when someone texts you or phone calls you. Like we still have trust in videos and photos.
Yeah.
But like you were just saying with deepfakes, I think in the next 10 years that world is going to get so accurate that it will literally get to the point where you don't believe anything on your mobile phone that's of importance unless the person has told you themselves in person, face-to-face, that ABCD is going to be sent to you in, or you've got proof they made that phone call, because we've been playing with some AI phone call software now that's pretty incredible. But in 10 years from now, you just won't know.
Yeah.
Things like AI cold calling is going to go through the roof in the coming years.
Yeah.
And then it's going to get to the point where they're going to have to change like a legal standard, or your phone's going to be constantly ringing from marketers or, so I think my prediction is we're going to end up back in a world where the face-to-face networking and the face-to-face traditional business methods or advertising on trusted platforms will become the number one, because things like, maybe not TikTok specifically, but some social medias or SMS and phone call are going to become so untrustworthy that you just won't believe anything it says.
I tend to agree. That's why I think we're going to get, to that point where we're going to get AI exhausted, that it's going to come back to that human interaction. Look at COVID. Everyone was working from home. And we're going to go back into the office. Are we ever going to shake anyone's hand again? And now we're hungry for that, personal interaction. We want to go to the networking, want to go to the footy, want to spend time with people because that's who we are as humans. So I think that as AI sort of takes off, I think that we may get a throwback to the old school way of doing business.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important, like you were saying, in marketing strategy, right? It is a strategy. And a strategy means you've got to pick which methods you can afford or are more important to the business. But I think the face-to-face has never slowed down. I don't know, it's a very regular question of mine to people of how they get business leads, because sales is obviously one of the toughest things in any business.
Yeah.
The response, I've only ever once gotten a response that it's Google or social media, and also from a guy who spends $150,000 a month on advertising.
Yeah.
So at scale, he's made it work, but on a small, he had to take the risk to go all in on it.
Yeah.
But pretty much everyone I know of all business sizes still says, and you did before when I asked you, it's the networking, it's the face-to-face, it's the doing the radio or the TV interviews, it's being seen as an expert.
Yeah.
And the other stuff is not noise, it's credible, but it's just a piece of the pie. It's really not, you can't be an absolute nobody and just be pumping out Instagram reels. It's not going to do anything for you.
No, totally. And I think that when it comes to branding and marketing, there's no silver bullet. I think you need to do, you need to have that holistic view and that holistic plan, and it's bloody hard work. So I think that anyone that's trying to push a silver bullet, turn away from them, because there isn't one.
It's funny you say that, because anytime I speak to somebody who's a marketer, and I put it on you before, anytime they respond with, oh, mate, Google Ads or Instagram Reels, trust me, you'll blow up. I go, this guy doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know any business people that say that, so they, it can't be true.
Yeah,
it's just a piece of it.
They've got an agenda, and they're obviously trying to push that agenda, I would say. But there's no silver bullet when it comes to branding and marketing. There's no silver bullet running a business. It's all sort of hard work. I think that there's a lot of business coaches and gurus out there. Some are good and some are bad. So if you find a good one, stick with them. You'll soon work out who the frauds are. But yeah, I think it comes down to determination, grit, consistency, and having that longer term vision. There's no such thing really as an overnight millionaire,
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone's got a thing they constantly are telling people in their business, whether it's potential customers or current customers. There's always this, mate, I've told you 20 times, it's not just this, it's this, and this.
Yeah.
And you've said it a few times, there's no silver bullet. And that's true for anything in business at all, right? There is normally not just, oh, mate, you just don't know the secret yet. Here's the secret. Just do it this way.
Yeah.
if anything, I think the biggest secret is the importance of face-to-face and networking is probably the secret most people have forgotten. But that's not a secret. It's read any business book and it'll tell you that. It's just that it's been forgotten with the hype of being online.
Yeah.
But when it comes back to branding, for people to remember your brand, it's got to be in front of them in more places than just on social media, right? And
Totally.
And it comes back to the old school networking.
Yeah, it comes down to you got to do a bit of everything. Then you just got to work out what's working for you and then lean into it. But I think that, and I'm not discounting social media, but I think it's more of a hygiene thing. It's something that you've got to do, but it's not gonna change your world. It's just something that it's like having a website. You just got to have a presence. But it's all the other activities that you're going to undertake that is going to help build your brand and help build your business. I think networking is really important. Obviously, we're both members of a few different networking groups, and it's just interacting with people, and then one conversation leads to another conversation, leads to another conversation, and then, hey, I've got a client. But that stuff takes time. It can't be forced. It's about nurturing those relationships and then making yourself available.
Yeah, so back to the repetitiveness of kind of being online, it just made me think as well, it's more or less the same in person, because if you go to any kind of networking group, going once doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to go so many times that the people you see regularly know you by name, know your business by name, and know what your offer is.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same lesson for being online, right? Is the content you're putting out has to be regular enough and repetitive enough that, if we go back to the $300,000 TV ads, they weren't doing a new ad every day. It was the same ad for a month or 2 months or 6 months or the year.
Or, yeah.
And it was, every jingle, their ads used to have a jingle, right?
So there's a throwback now. Jingles are coming back.
Oh, good.
Yeah, jingles are coming back, especially
because people remember them.
Yeah, they are. They
remember the pizza, pizza.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers them.
Meadow Lee, you ought to be. Congratulations. Yeah. All that sort of stuff.
And that's the corny stuff that I think is coming back. You're right. Yeah.
Because it makes your brand memorable.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to understand your brand, understand what you stand for, understand your brand's personality and tone of voice and all those sorts of things that you can then bring to life within your business, with your people, and then obviously through your communication.
So one of my biggest challenges in starting a business was I'd never worked in an office. So we have very different starts to our careers, right?
Yeah.
I went from, I was actually an apprentice mechanic, then I went into Sparky, and then I dropped that and ended up bartending, kind of like you, in different phases of life, and ended up in security. But by the time I started the business, I'd only ever done kind of front of house type stuff, security at the door or managing a bar or whatever. I'd never been at a desk in an office. I remember when we built our first office finally, I was ringing my mum going, hey, like for lunch tables, do people like sit at their desk or do we need a lunch room? Or like we had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And so you're on the opposite side of that fence. Behind closed doors in businesses the sizes you're in before starting your own, what were the conversations that was constant to them that were the important milestone things when it came to branding? Was there a constant, one of the things I've heard is, like you're saying about the brand messaging, it's almost part of HR to make sure everyone knows the mission, everyone knows, the goals, everyone knows what our 10-year goal is or our 15-year goal. That's all part of marketing too. It's kind of like internal marketing, right? It's training the branding.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. So there's employer branding or employee marketing, and then there's obviously the outward-facing stuff. So it's really important to have people within the business on the same page and, buying into the culture, buying into the ethos and the essence of the brand. Because if you don't have that, then you're not going to have a successful business or a successful brand. So it's important to have your people on the journey with you and having them buy into the culture and the values. And it can't just be a piece of paper on the wall or some really cool photos. You got to live and breathe it. Right, so that's the hard part. It's easy to do a workshop and then put some beautiful decals on the wall. That's our values, that's our mission. But people have got to live and breathe it. They've got to bring it to life. And the businesses that do that are the successful ones. I think that Apple's done a really good job, in terms of doing that. Coca-Cola, I think we're doing a really good job of doing that, because you can sort of when you see that brand or you experience it, you feel.
You know who's nailed it? JB Hi-Fi. You could take anyone and put them in a JB Hi-Fi and remove all the logos and just by the style of even the way the staff dress, as in from their own personality. They're not being forced to do it, but it's the kind of people they hire are so on brand that I'm sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure when they're brought in, they're not told dress this way or speak this way or act this way or be this kind of person. They just find the people that are naturally like that. And it doesn't matter what JB Hi-Fi you go into. I always think this, somehow all the staff you can picture having beers together.
Yeah.
They're all the same personality. They all dress similar. I'm sure they all have similar hobbies. Yeah. Not identical.
Yeah.
But that is branding, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what your customers are seeing is those staff.
Yeah.
And I think that's to your point, right? That's the internal branding. And I think most or probably all small businesses miss that because at the end of the day, we usually just have a problem we want to get solved. And then we grow to a point where we realize we've got all these different personalities and they all clash and nothing works. And some customers like this guy and hate that guy. And it gets a bit messy.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing. Sales and marketing are one. I think that there's forever and a day, there's been this clash between sales and market, but I think they need to work together. It needs to be hand in glove, and they're the businesses that have the most success. And I think obviously having everybody within the business on board, understanding what the brand is, what they need, the role that they play and bring that brand to life. And I think that's how you have a really successful business. Look, ultimately sales solves all problems. So the more sales you got, everything goes
cash
away.
flow.
Yeah. But when things get really, really tough and sales start to dry up, then you need to lean into those sort of strategies, lean into the brand. I think that's something that a lot of people miss, but it's a really important step because branding is business strategy, and I think they're one and the same. And I think that's where we're sort of branding and marketing gets the rough end of the stick, that it's not just about communication. It really is the nucleus of your business.
Yeah, and I think sales is kind of like the short term, like sales can pick things up very quickly, but branding's a very long ramp up. But if you drop the ball and it dies off again, brand awareness, people forget about you in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If they don't know where to find you or you're not constantly in front of them, back to old school things like the monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
I've always found that you can't discredit what you think people want to see or do. You've just got to do enough of them that you meet the personality types that your business is catered towards.
Yeah.
Recently, I was told a story by someone, I won't name the business because I might get him in trouble, but it was a very big business. And he was explaining to me how they internally kind of target their audience. And what I mean by that is, traditional advertising, let's say Google Ads, it's one to many. And what he was explaining was the one to few and how you can get really specific on that. And I think that might be a bit of a hidden gem as well. I don't know if you have many customers that look at things that way, but I know for us, if you picked, let's say there's a customer that's a size you can handle, but you only need a couple a year in your set. If you just won a couple of them, your problems are mostly solved, right? So how do you market to them? And then you've only got to market to 10 people and its staff rather than 10,000.
Well, it's about understanding your niche. So it's about understanding that niche. What are they looking for? So we've got a law firm. We've got a couple of law firms that we do some work for. We've got an IP law firm that we do some work for, and we do some video content every month. We've got a LinkedIn strategy, and we also do some Google Ads. But it's not about the vanity metrics. It's not about how many people are actually seeing these videos, but the people that see these videos are taking action because it's providing enough value to that niche that people are gravitating towards it, and they're contacting the law firm, they're engaging their services. So it's really about, we're talking about segments before, but within those segments, there may be a couple of niches that you can really dial up. And then it's really about understanding what are they looking for. So what services or products they're looking for that you can deliver, and then how do you get that message across to them? So there's some gold in those niches for sure.
Yeah, it's tough running a business that's one to many because usually that means low margins, high volume. And that's where you've got to spend the big money. The guy I mentioned that was 150 grand a month or something on Google, he was selling picture frames. And, they're probably only $20 or $30 each. Maybe they're $100 each. I don't know. But, he's got to sell a lot of them to do a good turnover. Yep. That's why he's got to spend so much on ad spend. But the customers are easier to find. The bigger the customer, the harder they are to find. But I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong is they use a method used for one to many, even though they're really trying to only win one to few. So it's not targeted enough and the money just gets lost. Google especially. We've run campaigns where we've done our monthly meeting, gone back through the data and realized the entire budget was spent. Like, for example, we did a competitors campaign, right?
Yeah.
the dream outcome of a competitor's campaign is someone's going to go looking for your competitor, and I know they stumble across you, and now they come to you as a customer. What actually happened was with the competitor campaign, we picked a global company, yeah, because we knew they were getting a lot of leads online. And what actually happened was people were searching, but they were to make complaints, not to become new customers. So we burnt like 150 phone calls or something in a month from clicking on the call to action to phone call from the ad.
Yeah.
But it was people going, hey, my thing's not working well. And we're like, oh, sorry, that's not us.
Wrong company.
Yeah. And, I must have dialed the wrong number. And you hang up, money gone.
Yeah.
And after that month, we were like, whoa, tone this thing back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the toughest thing about is paid ad spend is one wrong setting and that money's gone. And if it's a big budget, I think that month we maybe spent, I think that was a $10,000 spend probably that month.
Yeah.
And that's literally, it was 10 grand down the toilet. Like it was 10 grand to have 150 plus recordings of a competitor's complaints.
Yeah.
And we're like, good, we've confirmed they suck.
Yeah. No,
but what value did that give us?
It's easy to blow your budget.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't have that clear strategy going in, it's easy to lose money really quickly.
Yeah. I tried to do a course as well to learn our own Google ads and, you convince yourself that it's something you can start doing internally, but it's like anything. If it's your niche, you're going to be better at it than anybody that can be doing it as a side hustle.
Yeah.
But it is expensive, so for the small business, especially in, current market, especially if you're in Sydney or a major city where everyone's trying to pay less, it can be tough to do. So look, marketing's more or less a service. Would you consider yourself a service-based business?
Yeah, we're definitely a service-based business.
Because it's basically, I mean, you don't bill people hourly, but it's a trade for time, right? It's a skill you're trading for. You might not deliver it as an hourly rate, but it's time for money.
We've got a certain expertise that we're trading in. So yeah, we're definitely a service-based business.
So how have you found, from a business perspective, what's changed in the market post-COVID for you? Because I'm sure, I think everybody's probably had to come up with a few different methods. Either you've maintained size and not grown, and that's frustrating as a business owner, or you've gone backwards, which is even more frustrating. What have you seen change in the market in terms of, I'm sure there's 18-year-olds doing it way cheaper than you can. Have you stayed relevant, I guess, around that?
Well, we don't. So there's a lot of people that are a lot cheaper than us. As your business, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are cheaper than you. But so price is it's a marketing tool. High price, low price, however you want to price your business it's a marketing lever. So we price our stuff accordingly. We don't want to play around with the cheap stuff. So if you want to have cheap marketing, whatever it is, that's not for us. So we don't sort of play in that field. We know the sort of clients we want to go after. We want to go after companies that are on that growth trajectory, middle corporate, more mature, looking to sort of accelerate their business and their brand, and that's our customer. How things have changed, I think people now are leaning into, branding and marketing a lot more. So I think that, it's a lot more important now for businesses to win and get ahead. So I think that people see it as something they have to do, as something they'd like to do. That's my sort of comments post-COVID. Now, people have got to do it.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. It's got to be done, and it's either going to be, you don't have to do it, but you should be doing it. I think everybody understands that now.
Yeah.
There was probably a time where it was still debatable whether you needed to be online on social media or not as a business, or whether just a website was good enough. But that's probably agreed upon now across the board that, even the banks are on social media now, or our government's doing TikToks, it's pretty, I think, understood now that it's become part of the culture of doing business.
Yeah.
As a business owner, though, it can be really hard to have a lead come across your table that you can do something with, you'll make a bit of money out of it, even though it's not the perfect fit. How have you found it to, I guess, mentally go, this isn't the right fit, we've got to block out the noise, say no to them?
Well, I guess that's the thing. You need to understand whether it's going to drive your business forward or become a distraction. So if you see it's going to be a distraction for the business, it's going to not allow us to drive forward, then you just need to discount it. So it's hard to walk away from money that's on the table. But if you see it's going to be a distraction moving forward, I would suggest it's probably better to walk away from it.
In your business, have you gone really niche on something? Because I think that's probably where all business is going in the next 5 years is if you say, I do marketing or I do law or I'm a bookkeeper, that's now, and probably social media's helped this, but it's now not as powerful as saying, I'm a bookkeeper for service-based businesses, or I'm a marketer for people in the automotive industry. There's now more to the story. You can't just be a marketer, because that, like you were saying, with not wanting to be the cheapest, that's the only way really to draw the line of why you're different to the other person in a simple explanation, is because we're an expert on this specific thing. Have you done that as well, or?
We haven't. So we're a full service marketing agency. But I think what separates us from everybody else is the fact that I've got that 20 years of corporate experience. So brand strategy is what we lean into, but we do everything from media buying, so TV, radio, programmatic. We do SEO, we do AdWords, we do content creation, go-to-market execution. So we do absolutely everything. But what we lean into is that brand strategy piece, because that's what we can offer that not many people can. So off the back of that, then we can deliver everything else underneath it. So we're a full-service agency. We work across multiple different segments, from industrial to professional services, accountants, lawyers. We've got some bathroom renovation businesses, some clothing brands. So we do sort of a broad mix. We haven't specialised, but what sets us apart is that brand strategy piece.
Yeah, so more of that expert or consulting type high-level stuff that probably lesser experienced people don't have.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a way a lot of people are moving as well, is you hear all the time about being like the trusted advisor, for that kind of topic, or be the professional voice.
Yeah.
And so, similar method for our business, but basically if you come in at that level of professional opinion, then the lower end stuff anyone can do becomes part of the parcel, but you're really brought in because you have that understanding at the high level.
Yeah.
But that would mean also you've got to raise the bar of the size of business you work with, right? Because there's not going to be a place for you in like a one-man aircon business, right? You're going to have to pick businesses big enough that need that high level. Otherwise, you are going to be competing with. So instead of going niche, you've basically said there's a certain customer size we need to work with, or we're not valuable enough.
Pretty much. So we can do sort of everything. So we can run Google ads in parallel with building the brand. So we can do things in parallel. It doesn't need to be one step at a time. But what you're saying is right. We've sort of picked our sort of target customer we want to go after, and that's sort of where we're sitting.
So speaking to the young entrepreneur marketer, it sounds like their competitive edge at the moment is that they're a Gen Z TikToker who lives on the platform 14 hours a day, and has to recharge their phone 5 times.
Yeah.
That's their competitive edge, right? But they're only early in business. If they're going to stay in it the next 10, 15, 20 years, where are they gaining that experience? How do you learn?
That's a very good question. So I think that's where a lot of these sort of business coaches and gurus that they're looking at on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram are going to influence and sort of shape what their careers look like. I mean, I was lucky to have some really good mentors in corporate that taught me how to become a better marketer. These kids, I'm not too sure. I think there's going to be a lot of self-discovery, a lot of learning for themselves, a lot of trial and error.
A lot of online courses, I guess, are available in the menu compared to what
a lot of online courses. The good thing is, I mean, they're on trend. They're up to date with the latest bits and pieces when it comes to social. But nobody's teaching them how to think. Nobody's teaching them how to have that strategic and competitive edge. And I think that's going to be the real gap. And how they educate themselves will be the key in terms of who wins and who doesn't.
Personally, have you used coaches and things like that before? Or
Yeah. I got a business coach now.
Oh, okay. How's that been?
Good. He's a friend of mine's dad. He ran an investment bank for 25 years. He's 80 plus. So he's seen things that I haven't seen. He's got a finance background. Obviously got a marketing agency. So he gives me some really good insight, a really good sounding board for me. So I think business coaches are really important, and I've had one since I started the business. But you need to pick somebody that you can relate to. You need to pick somebody that can teach you something that nobody else can, and advise you in such a way that it's going to help you grow and develop as a business owner. It's going to help you grow your business.
I've always struggled with business coaches or advisors, probably 50% because my ADHD.
Yeah.
But also because it's like a business partner. It's like a marriage. You've really got to find someone that's the right fit, and I think that can be really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I think anytime I've heard somebody, like you've just said, you've come across this guy because he was your friend's dad, right?
Yeah.
It's like meeting your wife. Well, people meet on Tinder now, which is a bit more forced, but The best ones are seen to be people you come across.
Yeah.
But you've got to be openly looking for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always struggled to find somebody. I definitely value it, but this kind of, not like marketing, but in a way, there's a lot of sharks in that industry as well.
Right.
Anytime I've gotten close to maybe deciding on a coach, I've kind of found that either they're not the right fit or there was a whole charade going on that you kind of realize isn't there. And you've just said he's got a really good background. Maybe that's the hidden gem is you've really got to look into someone's background before you take their advice.
Totally. And a lot of people are just selling the hype. So a lot of these business coaches are selling the hype, but what have they actually done? What have they grown? What gives them the right to be a business coach? I think they're the sort of questions you need to be asking them and be digging into, because they're only going to be as good as their experience and what they've done. Anyone can read out of a textbook. And if you've got a coach that's just reading out of a textbook, they're probably not going to be the coach for you, I suggest. Yeah.
And just to walk through how that's worked, so you do like a weekly meeting or?
No, monthly.
Okay, yeah.
We're just doing.
Has it always been that way, or
2 hours a month? It can be as much as much or as little as you want. 2 hours a month works for me, and that's what we sort of work towards. And it's more of a sounding board, and just you check your thoughts. You got somebody to hold you accountable on a few different things. So I think it's good, and you need that perspective.
I think accountability is probably where a lot of entrepreneurs don't get their potential, because when you're running a business, especially when you're starting or growing one, or you're in your first few people or first few years, you're doing so many different things that it's hard to know where to narrow your time in on. I'm big on the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
And so that 20% that you should be putting more time and flipping to become your 80%, it's hard to know which ones they are. And if you get it wrong, it's more wasted time. And I think that's kind of where an advisor probably slips in, especially if you're a young entrepreneur. And like you said, it's somebody that's been there, that's either made the mistakes or seen other people do it, or has a lot more time on the clock than you do.
Yeah.
I think that's where, every entrepreneur wants to get more out of their business. That's normally, you don't normally start a business to stay the same forever. It's normally to grow it.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many things that can go wrong along the path. That just having someone guide you probably goes a long way. I've never had a business coach. I've got plenty of people I ask for advice, but it's normally just ringing a mate that I know is an expert on that specific thing, or, but it can be hard because you want to find somebody that tells you, hey, mate, that's a bad idea. Don't do that, or don't come up with this new way of doing something, or don't spend all your time on that. Have you found that you've been told no a lot, or you guys are on a similar page? Or
not so much no, but what they do is they challenge you to think differently. They just challenge your thought process and say, have you thought about this? And you'll generally come up with the right decision or the right conclusion. So I think that it's about having somebody challenge the way that you're thinking, and having them ask you the right questions. And I think that, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you'll generally come up with the right decision if you're asked the right questions. So you might be going down a certain path and say, oh, have you thought about this? What about that? And then you stop for a second. And I think it's that ability to stop and pause and really think. And that's when you'll come up with the decision that's going to help your business ultimately, I think. And I think that's the role of a coach, is to challenge people's thought process.
Yeah, I guess that's any decision maker in a business, right? It's no different when you're acting as somebody's CMO, as like an outsourced marketing, right? People are going to have ideas you don't agree with, but someone's got to push back on them, or at least get you to ask the following questions that you didn't go as far into. So dealing with businesses, let's say under $1 million, which is most businesses, is there something you see regularly people do wrong, or spend time or money on things that aren't relevant?
Well, I think the biggest thing is people don't have a really good understanding of their target audience. They don't understand what are the purchase motivators, who else is playing that space, why are people purchasing or using particular services or products. So you need to have a really good understanding of your target audience. And I think that's an area that most businesses, smaller businesses, are probably not up to speed or not at that level that they should be. You've got to know your target audience.
Yeah, it can be hard if you've got a business or product or service that's tailored to many people. If you're a plumber, everyone's got a plumbing problem at some stage in their life, right? But if you sell walking frames for elderly people, then it's a narrow product in nature, right? So your audience is pretty clear. I think it's a huge struggle to figure out who your audience is, though, because, again, you're coming back to that, not wanting to go too narrow or miss out on opportunity. But that's probably where the marketing doesn't hit.
You may have a couple of different segments. that you're going after. So it's about understanding the audience within that segment. Say, for instance, construction, industrial, retail, e-com. Just understanding the target audience within those particular segments and then building, a plan for those particular segments that then ladder up to your master brand. So you can have all these different segments, but your master brand sits above all those sort of segments. And underneath that, you're delivering different messages to those different audiences.
Mm. Yeah, and I think as well, to cover off on a part of marketing we haven't talked about, marketing is not just about new business, but it's about constantly re-educating your current customers, right? Because growing any business, one of your best lead sources is your existing client base. And I've seen it more than enough times where we do a newsletter or a new video or something and an existing customer goes, oh, I forgot you guys did that, because they use one of your services but don't know about the others.
Yep.
And so I guess it's probably, it's that cross-selling across your different offers.
Yeah, maximizing your customers, your client base, creating those brand advocates. Because when people can recommend, that's why Google reviews are really powerful and really important for every business. So if you're not pushing Google reviews, you should, because it's a information source a lot of people take seriously. But if you can create those brand advocates, have people referring your business and say, I use these guys, you should use them too, you're going to be a lot closer to converting that sale.
I've always been terrible with Google reviews because we forget to ask, and we should have automated that to go out after a sale 100 years ago, but we didn't. One of the things you see a lot now, I guess, which is the Google review method, but on steroids, is the video review.
Yeah.
Of having a customer stand in front of their business and give a video review.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with that is, firstly, being comfortable to ask your customer to do it. Mm. Secondly, there are certain customers or industries that might not want people to know that you're using their service.
Yeah.
How have you found getting people to do that? Do you use those video reviews on websites? Or?
In my industry, it's a real challenge because people don't they don't want other people to know who they're using, for their marketing or their strategy. Yeah. So I found that a real challenge, but with my clients, I get them to really push it.
Yeah.
So whether it's a written Google review, whether it's sending somebody a link when they've had a really positive experience, obviously the video case studies and testimonials are really important. Look, it's a challenge with every business, but if you can get a customer to do a video review or a Google review, you should, because they're really powerful and they go a long way. But I think it's a challenge with any business. With Google reviews, it also helps with SEO. So it's an important thing. But, when people are going to a restaurant, you always have a look at the Google reviews. What's their star rating? What are people saying about it? When you're going on holidays, you always look at the accommodation, Airbnb, what have people said about that particular location. So it's really important, I think, for every industry. For me, it's difficult to get those reviews, to be honest, but we're always trying and pushing.
Yeah, I think case studies are hard to put together because it's normally a lot more to it in terms of marketing. But for a smaller business, even just that small blurb from a customer saying, I'm this person, this is my job title, and I recommend these people, they've been great, blah, blah, blah. Even just that short thing. I know one of the tricks we've used is basically in the email requesting it, saying, hey, we hope you had a good experience. Do you mind if we get a testimonial?
Yeah.
Sometimes we attach a testimonial we've written and say, here's an idea, either print this and sign it, or change it to your own.
Yeah.
And we talk ourselves up or whatever, But a lot of the time people like that because all they've got to do is go in, change a few things so it's from them, it's not made up,
You're making it easy for them.
You're just making it easy for them, yeah, because it's time out of people's day. And I think the same with video reviews. We're going through that now. And if you ask somebody to stand there and take a video of themselves, they're going to rewatch it and go, I look like an idiot. I'm not sending him that.
Yeah.
But if you go, hey, I've got a young guy that's going to shoot out with a camera, he'll be there 15 minutes. It won't take much time out of your day. They can't then rewatch it and go, no, I'm not going to send it to him.
Can't delete it.
Yeah, it's like we've got it now,
Yeah.
And it'll be filmed well and we'll color grade it so you look good, I think it's how you approach it gets the best result. A friend of mine recently asked for a Google review and he's only a small business and I jumped on, he's got hundreds of reviews and I'm like, how the hell did you get hundreds of 5-star reviews? And he goes, I just ask everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, we don't. So
yeah.
That's the difference.
You don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah. But it can be hard to get. I mean, Google reviews are one of the more simple ones, right? Because people it's jumping on and typing a quick message.
Yeah.
But in a proposal, for example, a screenshot of a Google review is nowhere near as powerful as a video.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I mean, video format and that sort of video content these days is extremely powerful because people want to watch, they want to build that rapport, they feel like they're engaging with the person in the video. So I think it's really important, and that's why video content now is so powerful.
Interesting. So look, to finish off, if you were consulting a young guy right now in any business that's starting out, they've got no budget, and they're saying, what do I start with?
So I think understand your brand, understand why you started the business, what's your value proposition, what does your brand stand for? I think step number one, and then work your network as hard as you can. So work within that network and provide value. I mean, if you're providing value to somebody, then your business is going to grow and flourish. So it's all about delivering that value, and don't be afraid to work.
How important is the logo, the color? You hear some people say, don't use this color, it's too moody, use this color, it means success, like, is that stuff really that important, or just what matters is it's consistent across the board?
I think some of that matters to a certain point, but it's not the be all and end all. So I think you need to have a logo that you like, you need to have a logo that you're proud of, you need to have a logo that fits within the particular industry that you're operating in. So you need to have a look at what the competitors are doing. You want to try and do something a little bit different. But it's not the be all and end all. It's about understanding what you stand for, what value you're going to deliver, and then just deliver on that value. Over-index on what you're delivering, exceed people's expectations, don't under-deliver, and you're going to go a long way. It's going to be hard to be unsuccessful if you're doing those things.
And ask for a review at the end.
And find a good mentor.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Thanks for coming on today.
No, thanks, Rick. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Good to see you again.
Champion.